Hi, folks, with Tacitus today. Tacitus today is your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the increasing industry of fact-checking and supposed quelling or stopping or preventing of misinformation, disinformation. Now, as the globalist cabal, which is, of course, ideological, increases its grip and forces its grip on the Western citizenry, an absolutely essential component of that forced ideology is controlling the information, the media narrative, and partial control or 90% control isn't enough. It has to be 100% control. So they have to devise means of shutting down any other flow of information or opinions or thoughts or ideas, or even shutting down questions. Now, ideology has to have that. Democracy and freedom of the press, the assumption is that the better ideas will win out. Most of the time, I think they do. Not all the time, of course, but the better ideas win out. And through argument, you can debunk the argument the other folks are putting forward, or debunk ideas that are unworkable, or simply expose impracticalities, which is probably the more to the point. Ideology, of course, is different. You must believe what they tell you. You must. And in order to make you believe, force you to believe, they have to prevent any other point of view or question from appearing. And also, they must have means within their ideological sort of narrative to punish and eradicate even those that have views that or have questions that are in any way threatening the ideology. So this is ideology must have that. That is a must-have for ideology. Whereas democratic capitalism, freedom of the press can tolerate different points of view. They may attempt ridicule and things like that, or questions, but that's in the overall scheme of things, that's far more desirable. But anyway, came back to the ideology. Now, I know that this is going on all over the Western world, but Britain and America, Australia, and so on. There's a lot of money being given to various organisations, whether it be NGOs or increasingly NGOs that are positioned within universities. So it gives them this veneer of academic legitimacy, what they think it does, but really they're just a bunch of screaming, fucking raving activists as part of the wider NGO globalist network, and they're tasked with things like fact-checking or disinformation. Now, if you look at the thumbnail, there's somebody there. What's her name? Let me just have a look here. Joan Donovan, and she's an alleged misinformation expert in. I think she's moved from one university. I think she may have recently moved to Boston University. I read an article a few days ago, so I'm going from memory there, but I think that's it. And she's considered to be, by reputation at least, one of North America's foremost disinformation experts. Now, I don't know what that means exactly, expert how. Now, if you just go through her, as I understand, at least this is my opinion, and based on the cursory look I had at it, her whole sort of premise of what is misinformation, disinformation is that it's a white supremacist thing. It's neo-Nazi. It's fucking fascist. It's fucking Hitler. So does anyone else do misinformation, disinformation? What about the lies about COVID? So it's typically governments that have power, have the sort of power of controlling the institutions of state. They're typically the ones that engage in the large-scale, big-ticket misinformation, or any sort really. But so the idea that it's these shadowy white supremacists that have no real power anywhere, and who are they control none of the institutions. Somehow they're the purveyors of the misinformation. That seems not even plausible. But now, if you look at the sort of people that are involved in the disinformation, so supposedly rooting it out and investigating ways to stop it, they're really very simple. For the people that do misinformation, disinformation are Nazis. That's it. Nothing to talk about. Done deal. nothing to even investigate, no proof needed. That's it. Fringe Republicans, Donald Trump and this sort of. So those are the people that do it, and they're everywhere. Apparently, they control everything, and people like Ms. Donovan are really just a tiny minority fighting back against the man. They're the resistance fighting back against this all-pervasive evil miasma that is just everywhere. Now, of course, the reverse is really true, that the globalist misinformation, disinformation machine is vast, absolutely vast. And yeah, for example, when a black person's shot by a white person, it's international headline news instantly. When a black person shoots a white person, barely gets a murmur. That is disinformation. Whether it's disinformation by telling outright lies, such as the COVID stuff, or climate change, or it's disinformation in the sense of being very cherry pick type selective on what is reported and just to what extent it's ginned up. So if a white person shoots a black person, it's white supremacy, it's Nazis, it's Hitler. But if a black person does, hey, who cares? Random, just a rando event, nothing to see here, let's move along. So, that sort of thing. That's my way of thinking, that the news today, in fact, the entire media landscape is nothing but 24/7 disinformation and misinformation. And again, when you're an ideological government, which the West now is under the control of the ideological globalists, then controlling the narrative is absolutely paramount to pushing and maintaining your ideological power. Doing anything other than your ideology is not legitimate and must be crushed, stopped, and eradicated, which is really what this misinformation thing's all about. So when you have a look at the people, though, who are involved in the misinformation, disinformation game, they're rooting it out, and they believe that again that everyone is who the only purveyors of misinformation are white supremacist Nazis and the like, which is just utterly insane to even think that. But if you look at the sort of people that are involved, they're all very anti-white, very they're activists to the core. Their whole working life has been nothing but activist work for NGOs. All straight white males are evil. The family is evil. The heterosexual family is evil. Capitalism's evil, and those are the only people that do misinformation. Now, when you look for a definition of misinformation and disinformation, it's kind of hard. It's extremely vague, which gives them the option of accusing anyone they don't like of engaging in it. For example, if you question the blatantly false claims about climate change or COVID, then you're engaging in misinformation. You disagree with us, you are therefore engaging in disinformation. You are therefore a white supremacist. You are therefore a fascist. You are therefore a Nazi. You are therefore Hitler. And this then allows us, we can do, you're Hitler. We can do anything we want to you. Now, the interesting part, if you look at some of the papers and some of the even quite modest attempts at definition of what is misinformation and disinformation, they do softly and indirectly concede, well, we do misinformation and disinformation too. This is in searching for a definition. But if you do it, it's bad. When we do it, it's good. So you can do exactly the same thing as we do, but when you do it, it's bad. So they add another sort of criteria to defining disinformation. And they're using this against Trump at the moment, interestingly. And it's all ideological. It's all bullshit. What the definition is that misinformation or disinformation is if you mislead with the intention of misleading while you have evil in your heart. So the intent to mislead and you have evil intent. So that the two. Now, say you have evil intent means they presume what you may or may not have been thinking on the day or the moment or at all. And they claim that unique monopoly on that determination, which is how they're going after Trump. We say we know what you were thinking. And it's also part of how they were chasing Trump during his presidency. We know that his intention was bad. Therefore, what he said was misinformation, disinformation, or racist, or this or that. So they have it. Whereas if they do exactly the same thing, then no, but our intentions are good. If we mislead or tell lies, if we behave treacherously, deceitfully, then it's not the same, because our intentions are good. We're trying to do good. If we say 10,000, 100 million transgender people are being murdered every day, it's not really because they are, or because it's accurate, or it's not because that's a fact. It's because we're trying to tell people how oppressed transgenders are, and so we can tell any lie, any untruth, any fabrication in pursuit of that, because we're trying to help the transgenders. Now, because we're trying to help transgender, it means our intentions are good, therefore our intentions are pure, therefore it's not really misinformation or disinformation, because we're trying to do good. Not like those other guys, when they say things that we don't like, it's because they're all Hitler. And so that's really the definition, that sort of ideological definition of what misinformation is, rather than a factual definition or an absolute definition. And so now this is the same, if you look at the people doing the misinformation, disinformation thing, they're all hardcore leftists, the foot soldiers of the globalists, who'll be dispensed with quite brutally, I think, when the day comes when the globalists don't need them anymore. But for now, they're rooting out Hitler. We're fighting Hitler. We're good people. So what if we tell lies? So what if we fabricate evidence? So what if we invent facts? So what if we tell the most terrible untruth? It doesn't matter, because we're fighting Hitler. And that's really their refuge, or their point of refuge there. Now, looking at fact checkers. Now, whether you're looking at the fact checkers in the old, pre Mr. Musk Twitter days, or indeed, the Facebooks, or the YouTubes, or really any of the major media platforms, it won't surprise you to know that there's, there isn't much in the way of straight white males doing the fact checking. And if the very few straight white males are handsomely paid, and they're often ideological fanatics and more than happy to sell out their fellow citizens. So I mean, whether you look at them in Australia or really anywhere in the Western world, you'll notice not only a shortage of straight white males, but you'll notice an unusual amount of Indians, people from the subcontinent. I'm sort of surprised at how many there are in this. Now, surely you get anybody. I mean, if you advertise the job, fact checkers on X dollars an hour, or I don't know, whatever they get paid, then you'd attract anybody. Surely you just have a broad range of people putting their hand up, but instead there's an incredible oversupply of trans people, lesbians, angry lesbians. People who've been radicalized through high school and NGOs, placard waving climate change activists. So you've got a very radicalized group. So obviously their intention in getting fact checkers isn't to hire fact checkers, it's to hire radical activists and say, you check facts. So the fact checking goes along the same lines as this misinformation thing. So if President Trump says, look, we're getting all these illegal aliens coming to the United States. They're illiterate in their own language. They've got no skills. They can't contribute to our economy. That why would we want millions of those sort of people? Many of them are criminals. In many of these countries, they just empty out their jails and send them up to us. These sorts of things. Factually true. Nothing that. But he's got evil in his heart. Evil, Hitler, fascist, Nazi, evil. So fact checking, because we say your intention is bad, and therefore what you say, given the alleged, the projected bad intention you're supposed to have, whoever's speaking or writing the thing supposed to have, then we can say, well, that's not true, because we're stopping somebody with evil intent in their heart. Well, no, you're a fucking fact checker, fact checker. FACT, a fact checker, not a does that person I imagine in my fevered imagination have evil in their heart because my angry butch dyke lesbian gender studies professor said so. So it's not even any independent thought being applied to it. So, but anyway, I was surprised at how many how many Indians are involved. Now, one of the lead fact checkers in one group I'm looking at that had many Indians there. She's an upper class Indian family, and they came to, well, she came to Australia when she was, I think, 19 years old to do, or 20 years old to do a postgrad in, sociology of some sort. A nobody fails course. So she does that. Then she gets hired into a very left-wing activist media journal, and her job is to race grift and race hustle, to see racism everywhere and evil white people everywhere and white supremacist Nazis are everywhere and so on. And going back and looking at some of her articles, she sees neo-Nazis everywhere. I mean, there isn't a place you can step or look. There isn't a corner you can go around or a bed you can't look under to find gazillions of neo-Nazis there, and they're all white supremacists and so on. Now, she's Indian and she's got this huge chip on her shoulder and all that sort of stuff. But so she then gets hired into this fact-checking unit, which is then part of a university and which is also part of an NGO working there, and is very handsomely paid to do this. And her job is to supervise a number of fact checkers and really to make sure that only anti-white. So if you say all white people are evil, fascist, Nazi, Hitler, murderers, that's okay. There's no fact checking needed on that. But if you suggest that mass migration is getting out of control, fact check. That sort of thing is the sort of thing that only a Nazi would say. So we can say that it's disinformation or it's not true, and so on. So very, very activist take on it. But I'm surprised at how many Indians are attracted to this fact-checking thing. And again, if you looked at the fact checkers in the old Twitter, wall-to-wall Indians, including the so-called trust and safety team. What a name, trust and safety team, for a bunch of activist leftist goons. So Indians were everywhere you look. Now, the thing that gets me, though, is this particular woman I'm thinking about here. She's been welcomed to a white country. She walks straight into a university job. She gets given a degree at a white university, which is a very prized thing for Indians, by the way. She then walks straight into a reasonably well-paying job, straight out of university, into a well-paying job in a company that at the time was shedding staff. So they're firing their white people as they got too many people on the payroll, and they're hiring her specifically as a race grifter. So she gets a job straight, reasonably well paid, gets some international postings. So she's getting international travel paid for. So reasonably prestigious for a young woman from another country who's got no cred in Australia or in the first world. And is then given various other assignments and projects to write material for NGOs, propaganda, anti-white propaganda. And is then given another job in a white university working, working to discriminate against white social media people, not activists, just people who complain. It could be people that are posting in the comments section of about anything at all. It's just there to just excise, remove all anything that's pro-white, anything that questions the mass migration, anything that questions climate change, anything that questions that. But they run a narrative, full-time, 24/7 narrative that black people are oppressed. You question that or point out it's untrue, you're out. You're going to get fact-checked. Whereas fact-checking the other side of it, where Indians are running around saying how evil Whitey is, and I said that doesn't get fact-checked. So it's very one. So I'm wondering what the attraction is to the Indians to want to particularly get involved in saying that all white people are evil and they're all a bunch of fascist, Nazi, racists. They seem to be very keen on that. They seem to flock to it like flies to shit. I don't know why. I've got some ideas, but but why not go and get a decent job? You know, why do you have to do that? So anyway, so that's the thing there. But this is the essence of the definition they use. We can tell lies and misinformation and disinform, but we're trying to do it for good reasons. You know, we tell people that the world's going to end tomorrow from climate change because we want real change with the climate, real change in people's behaviour. It's not because it's true or because it is misinformation, kinda, but it's because we're good people. We've got good intentions here. We're trying. You know, we're just saying those things to try and create change, to turn things on their head because it needs to be. So really, our intentions are good to tell those. But if the other side tells the truth, accurate, hard facts, then it doesn't matter because it's still misinformation because they have evil in their heart, which even makes facts and truth misinformation because we project that they have evil in their hearts and therefore allowed to do, which again is makes up a huge part of how the international globalist media and indeed at the moment how the legal thing is going after Trump. This is also, by the way, this attitude has infected legal jurisprudence, you know, court, where the court, January 6th is a classic. The judge can say, well, we say you intended to overthrow the government. We just say it because you have evil in your heart and because you were in Washington at that time or because you say you voted for Trump. So we can just say, we project onto you those thoughts. And you see that in say the divorce courts as well, you know, a classic ideological court where they can just say, well, we say you intend, this is, you know, when they're dressing down the father or the husband or the man, we say you intend to oppress the woman and the children. You intend to. You may intend to. It's possible that you might intend to, and that's enough for the court to make a decision against you. Now, of course, it's insanity when it comes to legal practice, but that's how the legal system is going. So this idea of what we say is in your heart and your intention is being adopted in all sorts of areas, and no less in the arena of defining misinformation and disinformation. Being with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.